What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you for tuning in on this Sunday, the very last day of May. This is episode 6 of Best Served High Hospitality Industry Good Health. I have Erin Boyle with me, who is a chef, an advocate for the industry as a whole, for mental health and balance, which we need so much, and a good friend. Erin, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy Sunday.
Yes. All right. So we're going to talk about your story a little bit, kind of your journey. We're going to talk about the Denver Chefs Guild, a brand new organization started in Denver around bringing chefs to the table, building out that community, as well as Chow, culinary, hospitality, outreach, and wellness. Very much the inspiration for me trying to come up with a clever acronym for this channel that John Hinman, yourself, Sarah Carpenter, a lot of people have worked really hard to continue to grow and develop. So, but let's start with a little origin story. Give people kind of a little bit of a background, your cred in the industry, because you know that we in the industry are very quick that when we start talking about health, wellness, fitness, we tell people, you don't know, you haven't been in the shit like we have, like you don't understand. You understand, and I want to make sure people understand that from your perspective. So give us a little of that background.
I went to Culinary Institute of America and graduated, and then I've made my way around the country working at different restaurants and ended up in Denver. So locally, I worked at Rioja, Elway's, Root Down. So lots of restaurants with high volume and high expectations.
Yes.
One of those restaurants, when I got sick physically, and I remember going into the hospital, into the ER to get treated for pancreatitis, and was there for about 5 hours. They gave me a bunch of drugs and figured out what it was. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to go now because I got to go to work.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's just one restaurant, but it's not abnormal for a chef to feel like I have to do this. So at some point I hit a wall and I couldn't give restaurants anymore. And I was lucky enough to find Cook Street Culinary School. I had no interest in being a teacher. I didn't really want to be there. They were hiring, and it seemed like a good place to cool my heels for a while. I absolutely fell in love with teaching and spent a good amount of time there. And then I moved I'm currently furloughed, but I work at Mental Health Partners, and I work at training folks with mental illness on the job skills to get them into the food service industry.
But hey, real quick, our sound's a little wonky. Hold on, we're going to do a reset real quick. Just, par for the the technology, it also is having mental health issues these days with the amount that it's overloaded. So, but continue. You kind of were working to get people the resources that they need, perhaps some of the resources that you thought or wished you had when you were specifically in restaurants. Did it feel like that?
Yeah. So through all of that, I've kind of always I never wanted to leave the restaurants. I love it. I still miss the adrenaline of being on the line, the camaraderie, the sense of building something as a team. But I just couldn't be in that lifestyle anymore. I couldn't do I couldn't be asked to skip another funeral, wedding, or my personal physical health. I couldn't be asked to put all that on the back burner anymore. So I would love to see a world where we can choose restaurants and serve people and do the thing that we were born to do.
Yes.
But do it in a much more healthful way for everyone. I mean, burnout is a buzzword, and it is because it happens. It's a real thing. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, nobody's going to do it for us. So I got involved with both Chow. I harassed John into letting me get involved starting around last July when I met him at Slow Food. And I was like, I totally believe in this. How can I help? What can I do? And then lately I've been working with Anders Benson on the Denver Chefs Guild. And my goal there is to do the same thing, is to be a person that can help folks in the industry. Do you need help with mental health? How are you doing something amazing for your team to provide better mental health? What is that? Share your success stories so that we can get that model out into the rest of the world, right?
I think it's so important. We've talked about this. It's, like an overarching thing for me. I was like, imagine an industry where the norm, the status quo, the standard and expectation is that 65-year-old line cooks are getting ready to retire because we built an infrastructure for an equitable, profitable, sustainable industry. And it's just not the norm. You just don't hear about that because it grinds you up. You and me both.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember
killing myself.
Like we were fighting to see who could get the most hours. Like when you punched out your last shift of the week and it would print out what your totals were, if you had anything less than 70, you weren't being competitive. You were nothing. Were you even trying? What are you doing here? For everyone that was on salary, it was kind of like that was the thing. And that's just, that's not a sustainable workforce, right? So we need to keep giving people days off, paid sick leave, time to spend with their families when they're going through hard times, in order to have a status quo, in my opinion. And I think that especially with COVID, the restaurants that don't push harder to do better are not long for the system.
Yeah, and there's, reflecting on that, I think it's also important to understand that we still believe in hard work. Like, it's not about, and it's easy to be like, well, kids these days don't try as hard, they don't work as hard, they're not as committed. They're like, actually, they're calling bullshit. They're saying 70 hours a week, that's insane. Like, I understand that every once in a while it's going to happen and you rally as a team. I completely get that. And I think it's really important. And there's camaraderie in that. And I have great fond memories of my time working 72 hours a week. However, I could not sustain it. And most of us cannot. And so I think of input versus output. The hours that we put in don't necessarily reflect the output of the productivity that we put in. And it's such a short win. We're always playing the short transactional game. And then we wonder why we have labor shortages. Well, those aren't labor issues. Those are culture issues. They're playing out as a labor issue, but they really are systemic in the way that we go about that. And so let's talk practically about a couple of things. Let's start with Chow. What specifically is the work that Chow is doing? How are people involved? How can people be involved? When you start talking about mental health, people clam up quite a bit saying, that's not me. I'm not broken. I'm not an alcoholic, all these things. But most of us struggle mightily, and there's still relevance for us having a community where there's support built in. So give us some practical.
Yeah, so I mean, we're a results-oriented group, right? So we're not just here to bitch. We've got plenty of people to do that with. I can call you and tell you about how bad things are. And things aren't great right now. Our goal is to get together and have a little bit of time, an hour, 2 hours a week, where you're given something positive to take home with you and practical to put into your life so that you've got maybe just a little deeper well to draw from. So right now we have meetings on Mondays and Fridays at 6 p.m. On Mondays, we've got kind of a topic-driven thing where we talk about, say, passion. What does that mean to you? And how does that look? And how can we support our passion? And then on Fridays, we have a speaker come and kind of tell their story from what was the problem, how did I overcome, and how is life better now? All these things just seem to, it helps to talk. So even if you don't have mental health issues, you're not an addict, you're not bipolar, you're not schizophrenic, maybe things are just really hard right now. Maybe you've got a lot of anxiety about, will I have a job next week? Will my family be affected by COVID? we are people that understand exactly what your life looks like, right? We've all lived it. We've lived on the line. We washed all the dishes. We cleaned all the grease traps. We get what you're going through in a way that, at least for me, I found a lot of my friends outside of the industry don't quite understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been out of restaurants for almost 10 years now, and my ego is constantly pushed when people are like, "You're a chef? What restaurant?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's okay that I'm not in a restaurant. I am still a valid person and a chef. And that's one of the things that we could talk about. We also kind of shoot around just silliness. You know, maybe nobody's in a bad place and we just need to talk about poop for a half an hour.
Yeah. Well, John Himmon especially, he can't go 35 seconds without cracking a fucking joke. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And so I want to give people some more context. So on this past Friday, 2 days ago, I was a speaker for that. And it's been very interesting because for me, I'm such a like type A go-getter, unrelenting force that I don't often slow down to reflect. And so people, who know me really well, they're like, wait, you've been on a meditation app for the last 9-10 months? Like, you slow down and take 8 minutes for yourself and things like that. It's like, yeah, I need to. Like, it's crazy the breakneck speeds that we go. And I had plenty of, really great stories to tell people about how I ended up waking up in my car in the back parking structure of Tag Restaurant on Row 14, and reconciling that with the fact that I met some of the most amazing people, have some of the fondest memories and lifetime relationships that also were born out of that exact time. That's a challenge. It's a challenge to say that was the best of times, yet it also is why I can no longer work in a kitchen 70 hours a week. I can't do it. I have to communicate and bring value to the industry in a very different way, this being one of them. So you get that experience from people, and I got to share that story. And from that, Richard Anderson now will be a lifetime friend, somebody who I did not know before that, who after that messaged me and said, that was awesome. I had so many of the same experiences. I got to speak, and he was, blowing smoke. I think he's like, I just was not as good as you at articulating it, and I'm grateful for that. I do have the gift of gab, but we'll always be connected because of that singular moment, and I think that that's an important thing for the industry to reflect on. So anything else with Chow anyway, like where I got their website, your website here tagged so that people can find that. Anything else that we need to know about Chow, about how people can get involved, engaged, what they can expect, anything like that before we move on to the Chef's Guild?
So I really want to encourage people to not be nervous about coming. It is a welcoming group. It's not scary. You can just audit the whole thing. And what John has taught me that I didn't realize was so important was those shared stories. So hearing yourself reflected back in what's going on with other people somehow has like a really transformative effect on you to go, oh, wow, that's me too. And you just feel like a little bit that the load has been lifted.
Yeah,
like nothing's changed, but you've suddenly got a community. And that's what I think is really important. So especially if you're feeling lonely right now and isolated with everything that's going on, we're a pretty good place to land if you're feeling lonely.
And it doesn't feel like it has to be heavy. I think that's an important thing with Chow as well, is that you're not walking into an AA meeting and going to be called upon to call yourself out as an alcoholic, stand up in front of everybody and tell them your sob story. You can just be there, part of that community, and have that moment and go, that is totally me, for better or worse, that's totally me. And you can contribute if you want. You can be a wallflower, like all of those things are allowed. I very much think of it almost like going Larimer Square for any Tag Restaurant days. We would go to Euclid Hall, and then we would commiserate with people from all the other restaurants because it came like the after hours place. We drank entirely too much, and that part of it became unsustainable and toxic. However, that's what it feels like in a safer place, that you may not need to sit there and throw back shots to be able to communicate in that way, because we're too shut in to tell people how we feel unless we're drunk, and then we can blame it on the alcohol. So that's what it felt like for me. So go check out chow.org. It's a community. It's based in Denver. However, people from all over the country have an opportunity to engage, especially now because it is digital. So That's a great opportunity. Denver Chefs Guild, very much focused on building out the community, on thinking about, again, for me, it's equitable, profitable, and sustainable restaurant model, and gleaning those potential best practices, whatever that means, at least a roadmap. So why was that important? And give us a couple of the practical things happening there that you're excited about as we kind of wrap it up.
Again, with them, we're just starting. We don't really exactly know what we are yet.
Which is great. It's open.
It's a group of people that wants to be a resource. Like we want to host conversation spaces. We want to have resource banks. We want to publish food stories. We want to connect people. But we really want it to be a collaborative thing. And for the Denver Chefs Guild, if you can get onto the website or get onto the Facebook and tell us what you need, or again, the success stories. If you work at a place that you know you're taken care of, tell us about that. We would love to know who's doing it and how. I know you just had a group of folks together, like Juan Pedro, and there are some amazing folks out there. We want to know about all of them so that we can connect them and we can figure out how to replicate. We are also advocates for immigrants, refugees, and again, we don't know exactly what that looks like yet because we don't know what the needs are. I don't have that experience, so I can't say this is definitely what we're going to need. So the more information we can get about needs, wants, the better.
Gotcha. So at this point, Denver Chefs Guild, check it out. Facebook is where kind of I've engaged and seen a couple of the talks hosted, the videos that Anders specifically is kind of leading the way. We're posting very much the panel that we did, which you can check out on Best Served's page, which was great. Creatively investing in people was kind of tip of the spear for like how we think about the equitable, profitable, and sustainable model of our industry, of not just being like, how do we all come together, but how do we practically actually achieve that and make that part of the systemic business model? And so, Juan Padro was on that, Brother Luck, Josh Nuremberg, Carolyn Glover, Rebecca Berry, Anders, Kevin Galaba. So like really people that from different facets with different outlooks, different parts of the state of Colorado can kind of bring their methodology and their ethos and their practical applications to light. So check out Denver Chefs Guild on Facebook. And that's how that came about. Anders had asked for some topics. I was like, let me curate one. I'd love to do that. Yeah. So that was very much a cool collaboration. And I think the first of many. So go check them out on Facebook, engage, ask questions, hop on a call, figure out what it is that the community at large needs and you specifically. And so I like how you're coming at it from kind of a business model and the culture within restaurants, and then very much community when it comes to mental health, addiction, support mechanism. So kind of looking at it holistically, which I am not surprised that you're doing that work. So thank you for that, Erin.
Oh, my pleasure. Just hope to be involved some way. Got to keep my foot in it.
I appreciate it. We can bring value and show leadership in a multitude of ways within this industry. There's not one way to represent well as a chef. There's 100 ways. And I think the more that we understand that and the more that that becomes a part of the conversation that we have, I think it's a good thing. So I'm grateful. Appreciate you. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Erin.
You do the same. See you guys.
All right. That wraps up the month of May. What an unbelievable journey it's been. So much joy and pain, trials, triumphs throughout this. I am so grateful for the conversations that I have been allowed to have, that people have trusted me enough to go live and have a conversation. It means a lot. You know, we could come on here, I can be a fucking asshole and like try and like be the smartest guy in the room and rip people apart. And why aren't you doing this or that? It's really highlighting humans has been important to me. And that is a completely open space. I don't do interviews. I have conversations. People ask me, what questions are you gonna ask? I was like, I have no idea, but I will feel them and I will feed off of you. And so thank you so much. Thank you for allowing myself, Sophie Breaker, Corey Nelson, Mark Andrew Swan, Betsy Cummings to like bring this show to you. Bring this new channel, Best Served High Hospitality Industry Good Health. We'll see a lot more channels in the month of June as we try and just really focus in on what brings value to all of us in the industry, and or you specifically within where you're coming from within the industry or from outside the industry and wanting to be a support mechanism, or you're part of the whole ecosystem that it takes to run the hospitality industry. All right, everyone. Appreciate you. Tomorrow, Jill Elizabeth, DJ Just Jill, who's also in the industry and was recommended on high as one of the ultimate unsung hospitality heroes from our very good friend, Micah Lauderdale, who is just the best promoter of the industry. Said, you got to talk to Jill. I said, absolutely. I will talk to Jill. So tomorrow, noon Mountain, 1 p.m. Central, Jill Elizabeth will be on. And go to our site, check out all our guests this week. Great lineup. I am really fired up for the conversations we're going to have. Thank you so much. Cheers.